mamas. So I'm super freaking excited about today's training, and I am super like, holy shit, nervous because this is a live recording for the podcast. And this is a topic that's like, it's big and it's kind of like silly, but still emotionally charged a little bit. And I want to do you guys a solid and like help you understand what's happening with some of this stuff and get through it, right? And to like get to the other side of it and to help you like actually have a conversation with your husband or your partner, whoever, that you need to have about your self-care needs, right? And so, we're going to do this live on the podcast. In a second, I'm going to hit record, but use this as like a conversation, right? This is totally a conversation between you and I. Let's keep this like not so serious, right? This is an important topic, and this is one that we need to have and talk about, but it's also like we can have this conversation and get you like some mileage out of this conversation and get you going in the right direction without it being super like formal and robotic and crazy and detailed and whatever, right? So we're going to try to steer clear of that just a little bit. And we're going to treat this as like real talk, real life. This is what actually happens, in a household when you have little kids and when, mom has her shit that she needs and she wants to do it, but there's like this like funky, like, oh my God, I need to have a conversation with my husband and like all of that kind of stuff, right? So here we go. I am going to go ahead and take a drink of water, and I'm going to go ahead and hit record here in a second. So as you have questions, as you're popping on, do not hesitate to ask them. And if you're catching the replay also, don't hesitate to ask them if you have them as well, right? Okay, so let's get started. Let's get going. I'm going to go ahead and hit the record button so we are live. Cool. Awesome. So we are talking today about how to have a conversation with your partner about your self-care needs without feeling freaking ridiculous, right? Without feeling like silly for even needing to have that conversation, without feeling ridiculous for like acknowledging like what you need, and now you need to tell that to another person, because sometimes we take on this role like we don't need things, we just handle shit, and that's not always true, right? Even though we would like it to be true, that's not necessarily always true. And so if you get yourself in this situation, like in this, like, let's walk through an example. It's almost like, here's what happens for a lot of us. This is like, I'm not a relationship expert by any means. Holy shit, no. Right. But also like this, I'm going to walk you through a scenario that is exactly what used to go down for me. And I want to help you like avoid this in your own household, in your own marriage, all of that stuff. So here's how I used to like communicate my needs with my husband, and then it would like turn into a holy war or like a pissing match about like like keeping score and just stupidity, right? And just drama, and it never went in the way that I wanted it to go, and there was never like an outcome from it. We never like moved forward from it, and now we've kind of turned that around a little bit. So I want to share this. Okay, so here's what I used to do. I used to get to this point where I would be like, God, like I just need like a day to myself. I just need like 15 minutes to breathe in silence. I just need to leave the house so I can go here and do this by myself without, like having to take a kid along or having to like multitask 17 things, to do a task, right? Like, let's say there was a well child visit for one of my kids, and like I just need, like, that's like whatever, that's like a handful in itself sometimes, having to go to those things when you're juggling multiple kids, and like you get home and you're like, I just need like 20 minutes to myself to like decompress and like just have some alone time, or run to Target by myself, or get groceries by myself, or go do a workout by myself that doesn't involve me having to get goldfish for another human being, in the process. And like feeling like everything was always coming down on me and it was up to me to handle it, right? And so when I would get to that point, hey Tyler, hope you're having a good day. When I would get to that point, I would be like, I was already like making a list like mentally in my head about all these things that I was going to do for myself, right? I was like, oh, I'm going to like, you know, this day and this day and this day I'm going to go do a workout by myself. And this day I'm going to go to a coffee shop by myself. And this day I'm going to go get groceries by myself or whatever, right? And then in my head, I knew I needed these things, but I was also like, I never like shared that. Right? Like the obvious stuff. I never like shared that. I almost like just assumed like, well, hey, like, you know, right, that I want to go do a workout. And you know that I just took the kids to their well child and to dance class and to get groceries. And now I want to do this shit by myself and have some alone time and like recharge and like just have some freaking downtime, right? And I was always like under the assumption that my husband could also keep score in his head, which I'm sure he was. It was just a different scorecard, right? About like all the shit that I was doing, and that he would just automatically know that I needed some time to like decompress, right? And so like then when he didn't know that, because I, you know, assumed that he could read my mind, like then I was like, drama, like, oh, you don't know. And then I was like, that realization, like, you don't know that I need to work out by myself. You're not allowing me to have a workout by myself. You're not allowing me to have self-care time. You think that you are way more important than me, and look at me with my holy high rolling scorecard of all of the shit that I'm doing in my life, right? And all of the shit that, like, how everything's falling on me, and how I'm doing all the tasks with the kids all the time. And OMG, you can't even see this. So silent treatment engaged. I'm just going to treat you like dirt, right? You did not know that I needed 20 minutes to myself. You did not know that I wanted to go do a solo workout. You did not know that, you know, hello, I am burnt out and I need like I just need like silence. I just need like nobody to talk to me so I can recharge my batteries, right? And when he didn't know that, somehow mysteriously, because I didn't tell him, it was like, boy, I could like turn drama AF in a heartbeat, right? And then you like, I don't know if you're like me, but I like to make him pay for that just a little bit. And I don't necessarily know if you realize that if you operate like I do. Tyler says we're the same person. This is so me. Yeah, totally. If you operate like I do, you know how that ends, right? It's going to end in a blow up. That's not fun. It's going to end in both of you being resentful at each other. And that blows. That's not a fun place to be, because that's not ultimately what you wanted in the first place. You really just wanted some like solo time to recharge. And we just like, I never admitted that to myself. Like I never, you know, I knew all the things that I wanted, but I was like, almost like in this place where I was like, well, I think that he needs to know that I need that stuff, right? And he should tell me that I need that stuff. It was almost like in this weird, like permission space. Like, do I need to ask him permission for this stuff? Do I need to ask him permission to do this stuff by myself? And that wasn't anything that he was like telling me or even giving me the vibe of. It was like this like weird funky energy that I was like projecting, like feeling from myself and like projecting onto him. It was a whole hot mess, right? And then, you know, when he didn't magically know that I needed 20 minutes or a workout by myself or whatever, like time to make that guy pay, right? I'm going to be drama. I'm going to take it out on him. I'm going to give him the silent treatment. I'm going to one word him, you know, all of that stuff. Not productive at all. Because number one, you feel like shit. I would feel like shit. I would feel like, well, this is like a hot mess. Now I feel even worse than I did to begin with, because now I didn't still get what I need. I now put a whole bunch of funky shit onto my husband, and I handled it like in a way that I don't really like. And that's not fun either. And now, OMG, like, we have to rectify this whole situation, and it feels like this unwinding process of what was actually wrong in the first place, right? I don't want you to have that energy. Most of the time, we don't have that energy in our household anymore, but we're like human beings. Like, we still screw stuff up. Like, we still sometimes need to rectify the situation and learn how to handle it better. But in the meantime, I want to teach you guys today how I have done this. That's working a hell of a lot better than it was, you know, a year ago or 2 years ago. Cool. I also teach this inside of Thrive Like a Boss, my course on how to basically ditch the freaking overwhelm so you can get present and clear-headed again in your life. I teach this, I believe, in module 2 inside of that course. And I think I'm going to take this training and put that also inside of that course as like an addendum. But anyway, besides the point. So here we go. Number one, there's a couple things that we need, right? But we also like need to go about this strategically. We need to get our asses organized just a little bit in this whole process, right? Because there's a bunch of stuff. There's the acknowledgement that we're actually overwhelmed, right? We're overwhelmed. We have some things that we actually freaking need, right? And because of the dynamics, like we're a family, there's a household involved, there's a partner involved. There is like some structure to how this happens, and we need to be considerate of that, right? Just because like it needs to flow well. We want the like the atmosphere of the household to be good. We don't just want to continuously like take and like for our, without adding to the whole, the goodness of the family, right? Which is important. Not to say that your needs are not also important. I need to kind of clarify that. And then we need to communicate that without assumption, right? Without assuming that they just freaking magically know, right? And then we want like a mutually beneficial like outcome. Like everybody freaking wins and nobody feels cheated. Everybody feels like they're getting something from this, right? And so there's a couple parts of this. On you falls a couple different responsibilities right now, right? First and foremost, when we're kind of in this place where we're like, I need time to myself. Like I need alone time. I need time to like chill out. I need time to like recharge. I just need my stuff. This is what I need, right? Sometimes we don't necessarily know exactly what we need until we actually acknowledge what's happening in the first place, right? I'm burnt out a little bit. I'm way overwhelmed right now. I have a lot on my plate and I'm having like a hard time making sense of all this because I'm trying to do all of this stuff without like recharging in the process, right? It's literally like the admission that overwhelmed, hey, like reaching the fullness point, reaching the breaking point here, reaching like the place where I'm not going to like myself with what comes out of my, mouth next, right? The acknowledgement that that's actually happening is freaking huge. Being able to see that in the situation as it's unfolding almost like takes like the pressure off you. Like, what's wrong with me? What's going on? Like, why am I always like this? And like, simply like, I'm just overwhelmed. I'm just overwhelmed. And it's like validating yourself. Like I feel like this because I'm freaking overwhelmed, right? That's okay. That's okay to be at that spot. There's nothing wrong with that. But it's like before you even begin to have this conversation with your partner, we also need to back out and understand what's actually happening for us in the process, right? Like giving yourself like a hot second to understand I have a lot on my plate. I literally, like, that's okay. I just need a little time to unwind this, to kind of clear my head, to come back to like what's actually important here. I just need that, right? I need to come back to myself a little bit here. Cool. The admission. Admit it. We're overwhelmed. Mom life is a lot, you guys. Like it is a lot. And being able to admit that to yourself is like the validation that you're normal. You're not losing your damn mind. You're not nuts. You just have a lot of shit on your plate. Give yourself that, right? Like give yourself that peace. Okay, so here's what comes next. I need to take a drink of water. Because we need to kind of get to the place where we know what we need. Right? We can't have a conversation with somebody about all of the shit that we need without actually getting clear for ourselves in the process, right? So here's what I want you to do. I want you to sit with yourself for a couple minutes and like clarify this. Like, when you're in this place where you're like, I'm so overwhelmed, like I need a 10-day vacation to Bali and 17 massages and like, I don't even know, like 17 beers. Like, I don't even know what I need right now because everything feels like so much, right? We can't like, there's no outcome that can come from that. We're like in like wishy-washy land where we're like, I just want to live here where everything feels great and magical and rosy. And I just go live on an island somewhere and sip fun drinks and like have somebody give me a back massage all the time, right? Like that's not real life. We need to bring this back to like real conversation, real life, right? What do you need? What do you need? What are like the 1 to 3 simple things that you need right now, like today? And like, this is what I need this week, right? And giving yourself that time to like sit and actually like, what are the things that you need? Like, do you need 20 minutes? Like, a couple times a week to just like deep breathe and go do your own thing and journal? Do you need to trade off every other day with who gets up, first with the kids while the other person has, like solo time, right? Or like recharge time or journal time or reflection time or whatever? Do you need to work out Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 5:30 p.m., right? Like get specific about what you need. And then this is not like this is not like you going like, well, this is what I need. This is what's going to sound good. This is like you getting quiet for a minute and like, what's going to freaking make the difference here for me? What's going to make me feel like I'm getting my needs met? What's going to make me feel like I'm actually recharging? What's going to be like the big ticket items that are actually going to reduce the overwhelm, right? And I'm sure it's not like wishy-washy, like I'm going to go plan a trip to Bali, or I'm going to go, search Pinterest on how to reduce my overwhelm, right? This is more like getting specific. I know that I feel good when I have like an hour to myself. Okay, where's that going to go this week, right? That's one thing that you're clear on. Moving your body is excellent at moving funky ass energy through mental energy through your system, right? Where are you going to put that this week? Get clear, get specific, right? When's it going to happen? What exactly is it? Is what I'm trying to drive home for you, right? And that's going to vary by mama. That like what works for what's my thing might not be your thing. That's okay, but I'm guessing that you have like 2 to 3 things that you're like, I know that, sitting down and reading a book back on my deck in like silence for like half an hour, 3 nights a week, while, my husband is playing with the kids, like, that's a monumental thing for you. That's one of your things, right? Take it, own it. Don't be afraid of like playing around with what's actually like a big ticket item for you to like recharge and like kind of reduce the overwhelm that you're feeling, right? Come back to yourself. Cool. Now we're clear. So now we've admitted, we've almost like given ourselves permission, right? The permission slip to say like, I'm actually a human being. I'm not necessarily always a superhero. I have needs here, right? And we've admitted that we're overwhelmed, which is huge. And now we've kind of like figured out the plan, figured out what we actually need, figured out what we need to give to ourselves, what we want to give to ourselves, right? Now, here's the conversation part, okay? Here's where the conversation comes in with your husband or your, whoever it is. And at the same time, we have to know a few things, right? First of all, no, this is definitely not like, strange to hear this, but like men and women don't necessarily communicate the same way. I wish like that would have actually been a part of my marriage counseling like 10 years ago. Like this would have been vital. This would have saved like 10 years worth of heartache and like drama and stupid arguments if this would have been communicated in the first place. Men and women don't speak the same language at all, right? And this is good because there's, 2 different dynamics here, which is amazing. And we're both good at our own things, but we do not speak the same language. Your husband does not speak under assumption, right? He doesn't understand assumption. And he also doesn't always he wants to fix your shit. He wants to fix it. He wants to be the hero. He wants to solve your shit, right? And you're going to go into a conversation with him where you want him to hear you out. And you don't want him to solve your shit because you've just kind of understood and got clear on what you needed. You've already solved your shit, right? You just need to like sort out the dynamics of it and the logistics of it at this point and keep like everything afloat and everybody kosher in your family and like happy and like swimming along, right? And like everybody's winning, right? But also, as soon as you start this conversation, you have to almost start it with the preface of like, hey, I want to talk to you for a second, but I don't want you to try to fix this, right? I don't want you to try to fix the situation. I want you to just listen during this one, right? Hey, Roxanne. Hey, Casey. I want you to just listen during this situation. I know you want to fix it. I know you want to help me out and you want to jump in, but I want you to like understand where I'm coming from. And then I want to have like a conversation about how we can actually like both win in this scenario, right? Like, how is this going to benefit both of us? But I really just want to like talk this through with you first without you needing to like fix it for me. I just want to like talk to you about it, right? This almost like takes the pressure off of him to like not have to save the day, first of all. And it's also like, that's clear. His brain wants to save the day. That's like his brain. That's like what he wants to do. He's really good at fixing things. He really, really is. And he likes feeling needed and helpful by fixing things. But now this almost like settled down his brain, like, oh, I legit don't have to solve her problem right now. I don't need to solve the equation, right? She just wants to like talk me through how this is going and what's going on. It's like, it like decompresses, right? Cool. Okay. So here's what you want to, it's really, really easy when we're at this point. It was really, really easy for me a long time ago, last year, not a long time ago, let's be honest, to like start like the, you know, when you do this and I do this, and that almost turns it into like a blame game, right? And then that's going to just freaking escalate everything. And now this is going to turn into a shitty conversation instead of like a productive one, right? And you're kind of in this place where you're like, you don't know how to start the whole damn thing, right? Who's ever been in that situation where you're like, I need to have a conversation. I know it needs to happen, or we're just going to keep going around in circles. But like at the same time, like I need to start this and it feels hard and I feel ridiculous for even needing to say some of this stuff, but you still need to freaking say it, right? Here's what's helped me in the past. And like, this helped me like last week. This helped me like the first week in August. This helps me like literally all the time. Instead of like giving like a certain example, like when you do this, I do this, and it like whatever, and this happens, and that turns it into like blame and whatever. Start your conversation after you say, you know, I just want to talk for a second. I don't want you to fix this, right? Whatever. I just want to like let this out. Start the conversation with I feel. Right? Tell him how you feel. What does it feel like? I feel like there's so much shit on my plate right now, and I don't even know. I feel like I'm just losing my patience all the time, and I'm losing my shit, and I don't like that feeling. I feel like I feel guilty after doing that, and then I just say things that I don't mean to everybody in this house, and it feels awful. It feels like I'm not in charge of my own actions. You know, I don't like this feel. It just doesn't feel very good to me. Start the conversation with I feel. Number one, you're like, your feelings are your feelings, right? Like your feelings don't need to be solved. Your feelings are your feelings. And like when you say I feel, that also gives him permission to like say like reflect a little bit, like, oh, like he's going to start connecting some of that shit, right? He's going to start connecting like when this happens, she feels this way, right? And also he's probably going to start connecting some things in his own life. Like when she does this, I feel this, right? It's almost like now you're giving like a whole new like meaning and like spectrum to what's actually happening. It's not like I blame you for this. It's like when this is happening, I feel this way. Right? So start your conversation even though you feel like you are feeling, right? That's how we want to start the conversation. You're going to feel really silly for needing to say this. And you can even say that. I feel really silly for even like having to say this out loud and like admit this to myself and you. But when I am like, when it's been a really full day of like a lot of this stuff, I feel overwhelmed as hell. I feel ridiculously overwhelmed. I feel like I'm losing my patience all the time, and I don't like that feeling. Like I don't want to go through my life and living in this household like I'm always losing my patience, right? I don't like that feeling. I don't like the dynamic that creates for the rest of us living here, right? I feel like this is a lot. I feel like really, really like there's a lot coming at us this week, and I feel like we need to like have a discussion of how to handle that. And like there's a whole bunch of different ways that you can go with this, right? But as soon as we open with I feel, it's like you're getting out your communication in a way that doesn't need to be fixed, right? And you're also being honest with what's actually going on, which is like the huge part of the process. Because so often we're like, we can shift it into this blame thing, and that's not necessarily the truth either. We just need to like let out what's actually happening, right? The easiest way to do that is with I feel. I feel this way. Conversely, when you're not in a place where you need to have this conversation, I feel happy when you do this is also really a great thing, right? Saying that kind of stuff, right? Because it like equates like she feels this way when this happens. Okay, right? Like now everybody's on board. You've just given yourself permission to feel how you want to feel inside of this conversation that already feels like, oh, I don't even want to have this conversation. I feel silly for even needing to have this conversation. Like, why am I in this space? You know, like you're giving yourself permission to feel how you need to feel. Perfect, right? Awesome. Like not many people do that. So that's huge because that alone unloads a whole bunch of pressure off of you, right? You're also giving the permission to him to feel like how he needs to feel, right? Or like to understand like how your brain works without him needing to fix it, right? It's just like the difference in like the dynamic. That's cool, right? So you've kind of unloaded like the pressure from him as well. Do you guys have any questions so far? Like where does this come up for you guys? Where does this come up for you guys in your household or in your relationship or whatever, right? Because I feel like as soon as we add like kids to this, now we're like, if we don't get to this point of like solving this part first or managing this part first, then like it just keeps building and building and building, and it gets way more overwhelming to sort out and process, right? Okay. So now like after you've acknowledged like how you feel, and be specific about that, right? Like be specific about how you, like tell him how you feel. Like tell him exactly how you feel, right? So bring it now to like both of you freaking winning, right? I want us to have a clear understanding so that we both know what the hell's going on, you know, in this situation. I want us to both walk away from this situation with like no one feeling cheated. I want us to both feel like we equally were understood and heard and whatever, right? Because now that gives him permission to like, okay, good. You're not like just take, right? You're actually like wanting me to feel good in this situation too. You're wanting something that's fair. You're wanting this to be equal parts, right? And then the ask. And it's not even like the asking of permission from your husband. That's not it at all, because that's not what's happening. You give that permission to yourself, right? By you admitting what you need and understanding what you need. But it's like you can't go into this conversation without having what you want to take away from it understood first, right? So this is where you're like, I feel this way. I need this. I need to work out on Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 5:30 p.m. I need to trade off every other day or every other day on the weekend or whatever that looks like for you, of, you know, who is starting the day with the kids because, you know, you need this on this day and I need this on this day, and we both can have that, right? I need 20 minutes after, like, before I start getting dinner ready for the day to like decompress so I don't lose my shit, because every day is when I lose my patience at that time. And so I need 20 minutes of silence by myself, right? So how can we arrange that? But it's like because you know what you actually need, because you've actually given that to yourself, after you've started this conversation and you explain out how you feel, boom. That's what we want out of the situation. You're clear. It's direct. It's not something that he had to solve or fix or arrive at. You've outlined that, right? You've communicated that. You're saying that. And now we can kind of like, that's where like, yeah, okay. Oh my God, that's actually not so unreasonable, right? Here's what happens. Here's what happens during the takeaway of this, right? Is you're going to have this conversation and you're going to feel immediately like way less pressure, having admitted, number one, that you're overwhelmed to begin with, number two, that you have needs, number three, that you felt really freaking ridiculous even needing to like say this to another person because you assume that you're supposed to be a superhero in your life, right, and just slay everything. And now you've just clued in your husband that, holy shit, you're actually not a superhero and you don't feel like a superhero, and sometimes you feel the opposite of a superhero and you feel really burnt out and overwhelmed and shitty, and you just need to communicate that, right? And you didn't like make him have to solve that in the fix your problem in the process. You already knew the solution, right? But because we all live and coexist and want to have a happy relationship or a good relationship or a mutual relationship where everybody wins, like, holy shit, we can just have this honest conversation about how you freaking feel right now, right? And you didn't have to like point a finger at him or like do the dramatic thing where you assume that he knew what you needed and he didn't, so now you're pissed at him and you're giving the silent treatment and you're slamming doors and being like one wordy and, you know, dramatic and whatever, and like that's causing tension, and now your kids are feeding off of that tension and just a disaster. Like we've kind of like circumvented all of that, right? We've kind of like moved around all of that, but at the same time we've needed to own that, holy shit, yep, I feel overwhelmed. The admission, right? And it's not the admission to him, it's the admission to yourself. You give yourself that permission when you admit what's actually going on, instead of just masking it and pretending that you're just going to try to fix it and, you know, Pinteresting articles on how to solve your overwhelm, when really all you needed to do was just admit that to yourself, that OMG, it's been a hot minute since I've had a good day. Why do I feel like this? Holy shit, I'm overwhelmed and I haven't actually recharged my batteries for a while. Okay, that doesn't mean we're broken. That doesn't need to be, we need to be fixed. I can't talk anymore. It just means that we needed to acknowledge that that exists, right? Number 2, what do we need? Get clear about it. Don't be wishy-washy. Don't be like, I'm going to take some time for myself. What exactly is it? Identify it for yourself. Understand for yourself what you actually freaking need, right? I bet when you actually sit down to think about it, it's not 17 vacations to Bali and like 10 days away from your life. It's like a few things that really aren't that big of a deal, but you just need to give them to yourself, right? That's the permission that you're actually giving to yourself. You're giving yourself the permission, even though it feels like you're asking your husband for permission. That's not it at all. You need to give that permission to yourself. And then 3, it's the freaking conversation, right? It's having the damn conversation. The one where you're like, I feel like ridiculous needing to say this to another person, that I actually need these things, because I should just assume that I always feel good all the time and I'm never overwhelmed, and that, oh my God, I'm just freaking blessed to be a mother and like life is so rosy. Just admit what you need, right? Don't assume that, you know, everything is going to be fixed when you have this magical time away, because that's not going to be it. Admit what you need. And even if you do feel silly or ridiculous for needing to have that or wanting to start that discussion, or needing to have that discussion with your partner, who cares? Like, if you guys are in a relationship, if you're, you know, like, you have to be like, if you're going to feel silly, like, I'm guessing there's times where he's felt silly, right? He's going to understand that. That's okay. It's all right. You can ask for what you need. You can admit it to him. You can, you know, like say, like, this is what's going on. This is how I feel. Even if you do feel silly, who gives a shit, right? Like, you're raising kids together. Like, there's a whole bunch of awkward things that happen during like the course of your relationship. This is one of them, right? And it's really not that big of a deal, but we build it up into this, like, I feel like such a dumbass for even needing to have this conversation. I feel like I should not need these things. That's kind of what's happening here, right? It's okay if you do need these things. This is actually like life. It's a lot. You're allowed to need these things to feel like a human being, to feel like a complete person, to feel like you're your own person and you're still a mom. And both of those things, like, you're not just a mom who always just does things and runs around and solves all the problems all the time, where everything falls on your plate. You're a whole person here, and that also includes what you need to feel good, right? What questions do we have on this? I would love to open this up to questions. If you're catching the replay of this, don't hesitate to drop them in the comments. If you're catching this one on the podcast, because this is a live recording, do not hesitate to jump into the Mom Boss Tribe community and ask your questions, or like add to this discussion in any way, shape, or form. But there is a lot that happens after this. But here's the other thing that happens after the conversation. Number 1, you had the conversation. First of all, if it goes sideways, if this goes south and it turns into a blame game again, and it turns into, well, you did this, so I did this, and you did this, so I did this, and this tit for tat bullshit scores keeping stuff that nothing gets solved from. Just if it starts going down that route, close the conversation. Like, you know what? I think we both need like some 15 minutes to like decompress from this, to figure out what's actually happening here and how we can come together on this. But like, let's walk away from this one. Like, let's end this conversation so it doesn't turn into something that bigger, right? It's okay if it goes sideways. It's okay. Like, you're going to have a new conversation that you've maybe never had before. So don't put so much pressure on yourself that it has to go perfectly this time, right? Like, you're allowed to build into this, like, right? Okay. But what happens when this conversation turns out good? Right? You're going to feel lighter. You're going to feel like, why didn't I do that sooner? That was not actually such a big deal. Or maybe it was a big deal, but it was less of a big deal than I actually thought once I got the conversation rolling, right? And then the other thing that's going to happen is suddenly, like, there's going to, like, you're telling him what you need. That's perfect. He didn't have to solve it or try to fix it or assume what you need and then you end up pissed off, right? You told him what you need. He didn't have to, like, guess. That took a lot of pressure off of him, right? And then ideally, you're actually like feeling like a lot better, right? For the next however long, because you're giving yourself what you need. Changed behavior, how you handle things, like how you feel, which trickles down into how you treat all of your people and, you know, like how much patience you have at home is like the best example of changed behavior, right? That's the actual outcome of this whole conversation is how you're feeling, which translates into how you're being and acting and not losing your patience anymore at your house, right? Or with him or with the kids or whoever. And at the same time, like he's going to start realizing that, right? This is going to start clicking for him. If it doesn't click right away, who cares? Like it might click down the road. Like he might get to the point where he's realizing what he needs. He might come back at you with this same conversation. You were the first one to go at it, right? Like you were the first one to have the conversation. Down the road, he might come back and say what he needs. Guess what? That's perfect because like now everybody's winning and we're not having these stupid scenarios where we're like, yeah, but I did this last week, so you need to do this. And I did this last week, so you need to do this. And I can't believe you did this all the time. And like, blah, you never know what I need. Like we're like eliminating that bullshit, right? Or we're like lessening of it. Like, let's be honest, we're all human beings and it's also going to happen a little bit. But we're also like at this place where we're like, now, since we had this conversation, you had one, you can have more. You might be the initiator of the conversation sometimes, and now he might start to be the initiator of the conversation sometimes. And what if it gets a hell of a lot easier? What if we like also take the pressure off of him to need to fucking solve everything all the time, right? That's huge. It's like mom self-care and it's also freaking dad self-care. Who's ultimately winning here? We're still winning because like there's not this bullshit layer of stress and tit for tat and scorekeeping and like I'm gonna one word you and all of that kind of stuff, which doesn't feel good to you, right? This is huge. So as we're nearing the end of this one, you guys, I really just want to like take some time to say, give yourself what you need. First of all, step back and own what's actually happening. I'm freaking overwhelmed and I'm stressed out. Okay, that's understandable. Like life's a lot, right? What would start to solve that equation for you and get clear with yourself? That's you giving yourself permission to feel how you feel. And it's you giving yourself permission to like own that and like change that, right? You're the decider of that. Nobody can give that to you. You have to give that to yourself. Then having the conversation of how to do it in like a productive freaking way where it doesn't turn into some hot mess express argument, bullshit story, or like, you know, something that we keep rehashing like for the next 75 years or whatever, right? Everybody wins here. And it's not like super crazy and super dramatic. I'm going to tell you that in our own, like in my own application of this, it has been a hot mess for many, many years of like, this is what I need. I'm just going to assume what you need. This is ridiculous, right? You don't know. You don't freaking know that I need to go work out by myself. Like, how can you not know, right? Really, I just got sick of like feeling like none of this shit is actually working, right? And so being willing and open to like turn this conversation into your own way that still, I feel this way. I don't want you to fucking fix it. I just want you to talk. I just want to talk through it with you. Here's what I need. Let's like settle on some terms here. Like let's come to an agreement so we can both feel like we're winning and not getting cheated. And then let's move on. Right? It's like taking the drama and the tit for tat and the scorekeeping out of it. Because all of that shit, in my experience, in my marriage, in my household, is like miserable. It's like this constant calculation of who did what. It's this constant miscalculation of who knows where the hell we even stand. And that's stressful and that's crazy. And it just creates this like undercurrent of like expectation where you expect all of these things, but yet you don't communicate them. But why aren't they giving them to you? And why do I feel like this? And it's like, you can't even unwind that situation, right? Like, that's a miserable situation to be in. This gives us like, hi, this is how I feel. This is what I need. Now I'm going to go communicate that to my partner, and we're all going to like, boom, come together on this somehow, some way, right? And then we're going to move on. And we're not going to be like, one wording each other and scorekeeping each other and tit for tat and like blah, all that shitty stuff, right? All the stuff that nothing gets solved in and like the in-between bullshit, right? I think it just becomes so like much of a barrier for us because holy shit, like it's like the assumption that they think like we think. That's not how it works, right? We speak two completely different languages, even though we say the same things. How they're interpreted whatever, that's where I'm at today. How they're understood are completely different, right? So that's where we're at. It's just like taking away that like interpretation piece is all we're doing. And like putting it into feelings instead of like scorekeeping. Scorekeeping blows. And don't, you're not a saint here. Don't expect yourself, like you're going to find yourself scorekeeping again. But you can also like then like, oh, here's what's happening. Do I feel overwhelmed? Like you can start to like unwind what's happening in the rest of your life when you find yourself, scorekeeping on your husband or whatever, right? And then that's your clue to like, hey, I'm feeling this way. What do I actually need? Okay, now let's have a freaking conversation, right? And you're going into this conversation not knowing what not having a clue what you need. You're going in with like a plan of attack, and not necessarily attack, but a clear, this is what I'm really clear on right now. Right? Okay, so like I was saying before, I teach this, and I believe it's module 2 of Thrive Like a Boss. It might be module 3. It's somewhere in there. Thrive Like a Boss, I'm super excited about this, you guys, is basically my 28-day course on how to unwind the overwhelm, come back to yourself, come back to this clear space, give yourself what you freaking need to unwind the overwhelm and stop the cycle of losing your shit, feeling resentful when you feel like everything's falling on your plate and all of that shit, right? I actually have a special price on Thrive Like a Boss right now. It is $77, and it will be $77 through September 12th. Normally it's $111. And because of that, I want to get this in the hands of mamas who need to get past this overwhelmed bullshit and stop losing their shit and stop feeling resentful and stop feeling like the assumption that everybody knows how they feel when they freaking don't, right? When you enroll in Thrive Like a Boss between now and September 12th, the first 2 mamas that enroll in Thrive Like a Boss between now and September 12th, the first 2 get a kick-ass 30-minute free like strategy session on how to figure out where you are right now. You and I do that together so you can catapult your shit way forward, way faster, way better, and get a handle on this and go forward and feel better fucking quick, right? So Thrive Like a Boss is 28 days in length. It's kick-ass because it's going to teach you how to create the habit of coming back home to yourself, of creating space for yourself, of giving yourself what you need week after week for 4 weeks, right? For 28 straight days. So on day 29, through the rest of your life, you've literally like created that habit for yourself, and you give yourself what you need so you can feel clear-headed. So holy shit, you actually might feel joy sometimes in your mom life and not the damn overwhelm, right? I hope you guys have enjoyed this live recording episode of the Mom Boss Tribe podcast, because it was super fun to do this, even though it was a little nerve-wracking because a lot of my episodes are not live, and sometimes that adds an unexpected twist and element to it, right? If you guys have any questions, whether you're inside the live recording version on here, don't hesitate to drop them in the comments. If you're catching the replay, don't hesitate to drop them in the comments. And if you're catching this one on the podcast, don't hesitate to drop into the Mom Boss Tribe Facebook group and watch this one as well, or tell us what's going down for you so we can get you going in the right direction. Cool. You guys have a good freaking day. Bye-bye.